A Baltimore rowhouse stoop, scrubbed bright every Saturday, meant respect. A union job at Sparrows Point could put crab cakes on the table and Orioles tickets in your kid's hand. But beneath that proud routine, cracks were spreading. Was the real Baltimore of the 1970s as unbreakable as it seemed? Or were the first dominoes of decline already toppling? Here's what most have never been told. Saturday morning meant knees on cold marble and a bucket of soapy water balanced on the top step. In Highland Town or Little Italy, you could hear the scritch-scratch of brushes as mothers, grandmothers, and daughters took to the stoops, scrubbing each slab until it gleamed. The right cleaner mattered. Bon Ami for stubborn stains, Comet or Ajax for everyday shine, the air tinged with the sharp scent of pine and bleach. Neighbors compared the whiteness of their steps, trading gossip and friendly jabs about who had the brightest block. Young girls sometimes earned a few dollars scrubbing for the older ladies down the row. 5 sets before noon if they hustled, cash handed over with a wink and a warning not to miss a spot. Formstone covered the brick fronts, a patchwork of pastel and pebbled gray, loved by some and mocked by others, but nearly every block wore it by the 1970s. Each neighborhood carried its own flavor: Polish and Greek families in Highland Town, Italians in Little Italy, Irish in Locust Point, Germans and Eastern Europeans in Canton. Houses sold for $15,000 to $25,000, a price that put homeownership within reach for a steel worker or dockhand. Taverns sat on every corner, not just serving beer, but acting as living rooms for the whole block, where christenings, paydays, and arguments played out under the watchful eyes of regulars. Privacy was rare, but so was loneliness. On these streets, everyone knew your name, your grandmother, and whether you kept your stoop clean. Marble steps didn't just shine, they told the world you belonged. Shift whistles carried across the city, echoing from Sparrows Point before sunrise and again at 2 in the afternoon and 10 at night. For over 30,000 men and women, the day began and ended with that metallic blast. Bethlehem Steel's mill sprawled across the edge of the Patapsco, a world unto itself. Blast furnaces roaring, rail cars clanging, the air thick with the tang of burning coke and hot metal. A union card at Sparrows Point meant more than steady work. It meant a paycheck big enough to buy a rowhouse in Canton, send kids to Catholic school, maybe even take the family to Ocean City for a week in July. On payday, workers would cash their checks at the corner tavern, the same place their fathers and uncles had toasted retirements and mourned layoffs. General Motors on Burning Highway turned out vans by the hundreds, while McCormick's spice plant near the harbor filled the air with cinnamon and pepper, a sweet bite that drifted through open rowhouse windows. Nearly a third of Baltimore's workforce pulled a factory shift in 1970, and those jobs anchored neighborhoods, mortgages paid, groceries bought at the A&P, union dues covering health insurance and funerals. But in break rooms and union halls, rumors grew louder, talk of automation, foreign steel, and the first layoffs. The pride of building America's bridges and ships still ran deep, but a new worry crept in with every shift change. For now, the city worked, and the rhythm of steel and sweat held everything together. On a warm October afternoon in 1970, Memorial Stadium on 33rd Street pulsed with life. Orioles pennants waved above a sea of orange and black, the crowd rising as Brooks Robinson scooped another line drive at third. The air, thick with the smell of popcorn and spilled Natty Boh, crackled with something bigger than baseball. In the stands, factory workers in their union jackets sat shoulder to shoulder with dock workers, teachers, and office clerks, black and white, young and old, all shouting themselves hoarse for the same team. Tickets cost just a few bucks, cheap enough that a man could bring his whole family, a neighbor's kid, or even the guy from down the block who needed a night out. When the final out dropped into Paul Blair's glove, the stadium exploded. Strangers hugged, high-fived, and danced in the aisles. Out in the neighborhoods, bars flung their doors open, music spilled into the streets, and cars honked in celebration. The city felt stitched together, if only for a night. Radios everywhere blared Chuck Thompson's voice, his call echoing from open windows, backyard crab feasts, and corner taverns. "Ain't the beer cold?" That World Series win didn't just belong to the players, it belonged to every Baltimorean who had scrubbed a stoop, pulled a shift at the mill, or caught the number 8 bus to the ballpark. For a moment, the city's worries faded. The Orioles gave Baltimore something rare and precious, pride that crossed every dividing line, and a memory that still glows decades later. Football Sundays in Baltimore once felt as reliable as the church bells. Families bundled up for Memorial Stadium, thermoses of coffee in hand, ready to cheer for the Colts. But by the mid-1970s, something uneasy crept in. Owner Robert Irsay, a Chicago businessman with a quick temper, started dropping threats, saying the team would move unless the city built a new stadium or poured money into upgrades the city just could not afford. Every headline about negotiations brought more anxiety. Loyal fans kept showing up, but the crowds thinned as rumors swirled. Some folks grumbled about Irsay's antics at Pollock Johnny's or over beers at the Cross Street Market, but most just hoped it was all talk. On the field, Burt Jones gave people a reason to believe a strong-arm quarterback, league MVP material, the kind of player who could turn a season around. Still, as the decade wore on, trust in the team's future felt shakier. For the first time, Baltimore realized that even something as sacred as the Colts could be taken away. Crab season meant brown paper spread over long tables, mallets ready, and the sharp kick of Old Bay in the air. At O'Bricky's on Pratt Street, families cracked blue crabs until their fingers stung, washing them down with Natty Boh and stories that grew taller as the night went on. The market stalls at Lexington buzzed year-round, Fadley's shucking oysters, Burger's bakery stacking cookies thick with chocolate fudge, produced men hollering prices over the din. The air inside mixed the brine of seafood with the sweetness of fresh rolls, a scent that clung to your clothes all day. Outside, the harbor told a different story. Rotting piers leaned over water slick with oil, gulls circling above half-sunken timbers. Fells Point still belonged to sailors and bartenders, not tourists, and the clipper pride of Baltimore took her maiden voyage in 1977, sails bright against a backdrop of crumbling warehouses. Pleasure and neglect lived side by side, one block full of laughter and crab shells, the next marked by broken windows and the sour tang of low tide. Even so, the city's appetite never faded, hungry for flavor, memory, and the stubborn hope that something beautiful could rise from the grit. Houses emptied by the week as families packed up for Dundalk, Essex, or Towson, chasing safety and better schools beyond the city line. Baltimore's population tumbled from over 900,000 at the start of the decade to less than 800,000 by 1980. Entire blocks that once buzzed with kids and neighbors grew quiet, windows boarded, grass pushing through cracked sidewalks. In East and West Baltimore, heroin flooded the corners. Dealers posted up on Greenmount Avenue or Monument Street, passing glassine bags hand to hand. Addiction tore through families, leaving grandmothers to raise children, funerals outnumbering christenings. Crime climbed with every year, with muggings, break-ins, and the sense that after dark, certain streets belonged to someone else. School buses rolled past rowhouses, carrying black and white students into new neighborhoods under court orders. Protests flared outside Southern High, and more parents pulled their kids out, enrolling them in Catholic schools or moving to the county. Public housing projects like Lexington Terrace and Lafayette Courts filled with families left behind, poverty stacked floor on floor, hope harder to find. The city's foundation cracked, and the old promises of steady work and safe streets slipped further out of reach with every passing year. Baltimore's industrial heart may have faded, but its neighborhoods still echo with grit and pride. As new challenges reshape the city, the question now is whether community spirit can outlast economic shifts. History doesn't vanish here. It lingers on every stoop, waiting to be claimed. Share your Baltimore memories below.